Hello and welcome to Creature Club. It's normally a podcast all about the monsters of Dungeons and Dragons, but of course, this is episode 69.
Nice.
Which means that there's only one book that we're going to talk about, which is, of course, the supplement for 3rd edition, the Book of Erotic Fantasy. So the easiest way to do this, I think, is if I just start reading from the introduction.
Finally, I get to actually take this off the shelf.
Continue.
Go on.
So I'll just start reading from here. Let's see here. There's a nice little sort of, there's a bit of flavor. Will I read the flavor text?
Go on. I think so.
Yeah. Flavor.
For episode 69.
Flavor's all you really need for episode 69. So
I don't know what that means.
Oh.
Neither do I. Maybe we should get off this bit before people dwell on it for a bit too long.
You're damn right. The Book of Erotic Fantasy is a real book that actually exists. And I was going to do a joke about it, but it's actually like a really earnest book about having sex in D&D. And there's just nudie pictures in it. And I was like, oh, I've gone too far. This isn't funny.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. There's nudity in those?
No, there is.
Right.
There's literally there's nude people
And
in it.
do you see everything, Dan? Do they?
I haven't seen everything yet, but I'll tell you what, I'll keep going and I'll let you know if that changes.
Sure, I'll wander in.
Nothing is left to the imagination. Excellent.
Oh, man. Well, guys, welcome to, as you can probably tell by the name of this episode, welcome to episode 69, Dragons,
Nice.
The Final Dragons part. It's the Final Dragons episode. That's what it says. That's the full title.
That is the full title, yeah. I don't know how you guessed that.
I'm absolutely going to make that the title of the episode.
I really hope you don't, because it's going to be like, what?
No, do it.
But, okay, I guess
I'll leave it up for a week.
Nah, just leave it up. Nah, that's good. So basically, during the entire Dragons series, I've always said, like, oh, we'll talk about this in a follow-up Dragons finale episode. And now we're here, and we were kind of like, what are we going to do for this finale episode? And then we have a few ideas, but like we're just like, what are we doing? What are we doing again? I have
Hey, guys,
no idea.
what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, that's pretty much every single episode of Creature Club, I'd say. But yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, welcome. We're here. We're going to talk about it. So, guys, how do you feel that we are at the end of Dragons? And do you have any right now, before we go into the bits that we want to go into, any kind of just thoughts of Dragons and D&D that you feel like you kind of missed out saying in the episodes of Creature Club?
So first of all, first impression, before I talk about any of the dragons specifically, relief.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
I think I don't want to, I think I've said before, I might not have said it on the air, but I don't want to be a negative person anymore. I was a negative person, for a long time. I'm still kind of a negative person. I'd like to be less negative. So I'm not going to dwell on it, but I will say is like, compared to the other times we've done big groups of enemies, like the demons and the devils are the obvious ones, the dragons have had a lot less variety, and I think that has made it feel longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I have still enjoyed it, and I think we've actually got a lot of cool stuff out of all of them. But we did end up turning feckin' Frightful Presence into a running joke.
Yeah.
Because it's just the same block of text on every monster stat block for like 14 pages.
Yep.
Yeah.
And like, come on, man.
And honestly, it actually feels like we've been doing it for like 3 years.
Century.
I feel like we've been talking about dragons for 3 years. I'm going to be honest with you guys.
I know. I think we've been doing the podcast for 3 years, but I couldn't tell you what we were doing before we were doing dragons.
Honestly, I don't remember a time of Creature Club podcast where we haven't been talking about dragons.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I had a period once where I had like 2 years ago, I had a chest infection for like 6 weeks. And there was a moment where I was like, I can't remember what it feels like to not have a chest infection. Like I've been
exactly
sick so
that
long
feeling.
that my short-term memory had just like lost everything, and I was like, I can't remember what this feels like. I won't know if I'm normal again.
Yeah.
It's just that, but with dragon stat blocks.
It's very true. Like, apparently we did episodes on, like, aboleths and azers and stuff, but I have no idea what we said in those. All I remember is that dragons, frightful presence, and then claw.
We did an
burning
episode on the
hands,
doppelganger.
you know.
I honestly, the only reason I know that is because of the alphabet. I don't remember a thing about it.
Yeah. There's when I go back in the library episodes we have, we're just like, I don't remember a single thing we said about this guy. I really don't. And usually every episode of Creature Club has, like, you know, a thing, a gimmick, one where we're just like, we all agree on and we think that's the cool thing to do with it. For, like, at least we have a bunch of ideas, but there's always one idea that, like, shines above the rest, I think, in every episode.
Yeah.
I think
and
so,
I just don't remember most of them now because
I can't remember
because
the taste of
frightful
strawberries.
presence involves you having to, like, you know, fright. I would read it out, but I just don't have it in front of me now. But it would have been a great moment
please
for me
don't.
reading
Yeah,
it out.
I went back to see when we started Dragons because I honestly couldn't remember. Apparently, we started 2020 on Dragons. The 27th of January was our first episode in 2020.
Oh my god!
And it was
We've done
Dragons intro.
Nothing but dragons this year.
Yeah.
Oh,
Which is
God in
pretty
heaven.
appropriate, I feel.
Oh fucking.
Oh
Good
my
Lord.
god!
But yeah, I think that, like, we've definitely tired ourselves out a little bit on Dragons, but I think that with that, we are definitely going to be jumping into everything else that follows it with both feet.
Yes.
And, like,
Yeah.
even the slightest glimmer of hope that I got from the Shadow Dragons last episode, I was super into, like, researching what I could about all the different planes. Like, doing anything for this podcast other than dragons right now is super duper motivating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, dragons being synonymous with the old Dungeons and Dragons, i.e. they are in the title, I feel like we've done them a pretty good amount of justice, honestly. Like, having talked about them for so long, we did legitimately have something decent to say about each one, I feel. I think we went hard on one or two of them that were just kind of boring, I think. But even with that, I think it was the Blue Dragon, maybe, that we were kind of mean about. But I feel like we did also, like, have something cool to reference about it. Or we always came up with something interesting to do with that. And I think that is to our credit. Very much.
It's always upsetting when the Creature Club guys are just mean against a monster, you know? Like, there's a few
Yeah, I know
episodes
what
where we're
you
just
mean,
like, you know,
yeah.
we're just like, we're supposed to love monsters, but when we see something like the
Sometimes
Demi-Lich, we
yeah,
hate
yeah.
the Demi-Lich.
Sometimes we do just bully a monster, and that's
Yeah.
and like, yeah, maybe that's something we shouldn't do. But I think on the other hand, like, it's just a case of, like, I think what it is, it's the intersection of, we want to host the show and have fun and talk about monsters, but also we're DMs who love this game and want to run it well and have a fun time running it.
Yeah,
So I think a lot of the time our frustration stems from the idea that we're thinking about running this monster and thinking, like, this would just be a bad time. I wouldn't I wouldn't enjoy running this because it would be very complicated, like it would have loads of spell casting, or my players wouldn't enjoy dealing with it because it's just a pain in the arse. And like that's just yeah. But
I do think that some of our stuff, some of our more fun, creative stuff, has even come from our frustration with how lackluster the Monster Manual presents them. A pretty good example of that was the Centaur. Like, we were so we were so bothered by how fucking boring the Centaur was.
We're just like, centaurs suck, man. Like,
that
and
was
then
funny. I forgot about that.
And then we came up with this fucking rad idea about them being like these lightning elemental creatures on the, like, thunder plains with their thundering hooves, and, like, that was such a cool turnaround.
We did?
Yeah, we came up with a really
did
cool
that?
idea for the Centaurs. I was super proud of that.
Man.
It was such a cool little turnaround that we did. And so for Dragons, I think that with this wrap-up episode, we have a couple ideas of directions that we can go. So I think if we start getting into that now, then we can redeem ourselves.
Yeah, well, real quick, Tim, just by going with what you're saying, where we kind of didn't like a few dragons, we liked other dragons. Guys, what's any standouts of dragons that you like, or that you kind of learned to like more doing this series? Do you have any highlights at all, that, or even this, like, few different new ideas for the dragons just that we came up with ourselves, or just, you know, dragons that we like? What are your favorite dragons, guys, after this series?
For me, if I could go first, I think
absolutely.
I think that the gold dragon was so bizarre to me and so kind of came of left of field.
I was going to say the same thing.
Like, I was expecting it to be this wise ancient dragon, and it turned out to be this bizarre dreamscape, mystical,
Yeah.
like fluffy dragon boy. And it was
Yeah, they could see the future and all this shit. And
that was really, really surprising. Like, I went into that episode expecting that I would present something about gold dragons in mythology, and I came up with nothing, and that the gold dragon would be this wise creature that we could talk about. And then I didn't have much to say about dragons because I couldn't find much, and that the gold dragon just really whipped its head around and was like, I'm not what you expect me to be. Like, that was kind of interesting. It feels like a very creative decision on the behalf of the Wizards of the Coast. I don't remember if that's their way that they've been throughout history, but the gold dragon was definitely a surprise, or like a wrench in the works of my expectation, if I could put it that way.
It's like the She's All That transformation, but for a dragon.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I think the brass dragons in general have been very cool. I've actually really enjoyed doing them. I think we found some really cool like identities and just ways we can play with them, I think, because they're not really inherently evil, but kind of found ways to kind of use them in adventures though. Because I just remember with like, which one was that entire like ship in a bottle one again? Which one's that? Was that the
that was the silver dragon, I think. Yeah. One of our later ones.
Was it Silver Dragon?
I believe so.
It must have been.
I couldn't tell you, man. I honestly.
Yeah, I think it is Silver Dragon. Yeah, well, Silver Dragon is actually one of my favorite dragons, I think, and I think like the Bronze Dragon, that's kind of more like a kind of a nautical dragon. You know, I think they just the brass guys just like they're a lot more cool, you know, than more like the chromatic dragons are very cool, but they're always kind of like, this one's evil and this one's also kind of evil, and they live in the swamp or they live in the mountain or something. But
this is my swamp.
This is my swamp. You know, true evil like Shrek. I can't even say that with a straight face. He's not evil at all. He's good.
Please leave my swamp. What an evil bastard! I'm gonna kick his ass.
Truly evil. I'm gonna kill him. But. No, but the brass dragons, I think that because players don't really fight them that much because they're good creatures, I liked those episodes quite a lot. You know, I quite enjoyed the brass dragon episodes myself, and I learned to have an appreciation for them a lot more now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that giving the chromatic dragons were basically like, they were all bad. Like, there wasn't much that like was redeeming about any of their particular characters. Like, those were the guys that if you wanted your party to just fight a dragon, throw one of these at them, and then there won't be much moral like gray area with fighting them. Whereas the metallic dragons weren't necessarily the, pardon the pun, the foil to that. But by
Tim,
by not being like a perfectly like shining example of being these pure good characters. Like, they had the morally gray areas. Like, they would fight. I mean, a lot of the time it did say that they were generally good, but like, they could be manipulated into fighting against a party or like for one kingdom over another in your setting. So they weren't necessarily like all bad. You could have them on your side as a helpful companion, or they could be a problem that you can present to your players. And I think that the metallic dragons having that kind of necessarily moral gray from the perspective of your party potentially is a much more interesting way to work with than I think the chromatic dragons kind of presented to me, at least. Or that's how I felt.
Cool.
Yeah,
I get that. Like, I guess it's straightforward. Like, the chromatic dragons represent kind of like, you know, is it Saint George and the Dragon from like Christian myth? Like, you know, just like kill the evil dragon, or obviously the Hobbit with Smaug. Just like the dragon is a big evil monster and needs to be destroyed. Mm-hmm. Whereas the metallic dragons represent more of a, you know, these creatures are like powerful and they consolidate power and wealth under themselves, but they appear to have good motives, and maybe their means, while different to humans, aren't bad, and in fact might be pursuing the same ultimate goal.
Yeah.
In terms of stuff that I liked when we talked about the Bronze Dragon and we gave it the coastal fortress and talked about the idea of the coastal fortress, kind of the dragon passing away of old age and that becoming a sort of a focal point of a power struggle, and also being a mega dungeon that the party could explore. And like, I just like stuff like that where like you can kind of come up with one thing, just like dragon lair, but it's a dungeon and it's a focal point for politics, so it can do both things. I just love stuff like that. I think it's cool. I like the sort of intersection of problems we understand, like this piece of land is important for warfare, and then things we don't understand, like this piece of land is also a dungeon full of monsters.
Yeah.
I like sort of that intersection. I really like learning about the gold dragon's abilities from second and third edition, where it could bless gemstones and give them to people, and then people would have a bonus. It basically acted like a stone of good luck, the magic item from 5e, just giving you like a +1 bonus to like saves and attacks, I think, or saves and checks. But yeah, either way. And I think I just like that idea of like really kind of minor blessings. Like I sort of like this idea of boons, that dragons can just bestow power onto mortals they favor. And I liked that mechanic being, actualized, and this stat block saying, this is how they do that. This is exactly what they do. And like, here's how it works, and here's how they use it, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. What dragon would you most want to hang out with? And what dragon would you want to go on an adventure with?
Probably Bronze. He's a big, brawny, fighty boy. He'd be very handy in a scrap.
A scrap?
Yeah. And I'm sure he'd have some interesting tales to tell.
Gotcha. Dan, do you have one?
I'd probably go with like a copper dragon to hang out with, and then maybe a silver dragon for adventures, or if I can pick anyone, a red dragon, just because they look cool.
Yeah. I was just going to go like silver dragon for hanging out with, and then probably like adventures, I would go with like bronze, actually, myself, I'd say. So, yeah. Wow. We kind of going against circles. Yeah, very cyclical there. Or cyclical, cyclicals, or it's very cyclical.
Time is a flat circle.
Yeah. Great. Well, cool. Guys, so will I go into the next segment, guys? Would you be all right if I did that? Will we do that? Then the segment that we plan to do. Well, okay. So what I did, I decided to go on the Creature Club podcast Twitter to ask the universe.
What?
Just ask the whole universe questions about dragons.
Mikey, we didn't discuss this.
We got. Listen, guys, I did it without even asking.
Executive decisions.
And he's large and in charge.
Yeah, I'm large and in charge. I have to scroll through about, let's say, 10,000 tweets here, but I think I've come down to like the best 4 that we have here. So, sorry about that. My microphone's falling. If anyone is if anyone's paying attention to me on this show and me just on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mike Slime, so my microphone stand is shite, and it's just
man, you're having a bad
falling
time
out.
with it.
I'm having a bad time with this microphone stand, so I need to buy a new one.
I think mine might be a bit bad as well. I've actually been thinking of replacing it with like a slightly nicer one. Maybe the two of us should do some research and invest in some good mic stands,
like a really good one. Yeah. How about we? I asked Twitter just like if they wanted to know anything more about dragons and such. That let's say if we missed anything and stuff. So we got one here. This is from that guy at Razel Kool-Aid. What other strange draconoids have there been? I could stand to hear more about this dragon horse. So you guys mentioned the dragon horse last episode. Is that right?
Yeah, I mentioned it in passing as I was scrolling through the first edition Monster Manual 2. That's the book if anyone else wants to check. So we were talking about shadow dragons, and that was the first appearance of the shadow dragon in first edition Dungeons and Dragons. So we get the shadow dragon, we get the dragonfly, giant, and then we get the dragon horse. Don't know why dragon horse isn't after shadow dragon. This book's weird.
Power levels,
obviously. So the dragon horse is a pretty straightforward monster. It actually looks sort of similar to a Kyrian.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Which is kind of the spiritual, sort of magical, golden-y, sort of hooved creature.
Yeah.
From, I believe it's from Chinese folklore, or am I miscorrect?
You got it.
Oh, excellent. And I think they're statted up in Volo's Guide to Monsters in 5th edition, if people are looking for them. But it says that they look similar. They're supposed to be a relative of them, supposedly. In terms of their attacks, they have 2 kicks. They have the 2 good kicks that God gave them. But also they have a much more interesting ability, which is that once per turn when they can use a breath weapon, but they have 3 breath weapons. So they actually have more than chromatic dragons and more than even metallic dragons, who normally have kind of 2 different choices. The dragon horse can either breathe a fog of cloud, a cone of cloud, excuse me. Actually, it's just breathe a fog cloud as in the spell. So I guess it's a square, which is weird.
A cloud of misty fog.
So he just vapes a big, like a fat cotton rip, like right at you, and you're just blinded, obviously, and like you can probably smell cheesecake or something.
Nice.
Alternatively, he has gust of wind, so he just knocks everybody back, or it can be a cone of cold, which, if you recall, is a quite powerful high-level spell that just deals a massive amount of cold damage in a big area.
I've killed 2 characters with that spell. Yeah,
it's a great spell, man. It's so good.
Yeah.
It gets everywhere. It's such a big cone.
Yeah, that damn cone.
It just don't miss. But yeah, so that's its main ability. Is it can replicate multiple breaths all at once. And then it describes how it has incredible senses, so it can never be surprised, and it can read minds, so it can know people, whether or not people are good or evil, and then it can go through different dimensions. It likes hanging out in the astral or the ethereal planes, and it can travel freely between those and the material plane. Again, might be handy as a way to get around. Might be a cool mount for a very high-level character, for example.
So in the real world, the Kirin is also called a dragon horse.
Oh, cool.
Apparently. Yeah, the Kirin is the Japanese pronunciation for the Qilin, or the Longma, which is the dragon horse in Chinese mythology. And the Longma was an omen of the coming of a great ruler or king. Specifically, it was of a... I mean, this sounds so D&D, but there were... In Chinese mythology, there are the 3 sovereigns who are like basically demigods or like god kings that basically come to China to arm their people with essential skills and things that they would need to begin to prosper again. So the Longma and the Kirin were omens or like precursors to the occurrence of these 3 sovereigns or 5 emperors. And the 5 emperors were basically just other great leaders that would come along to basically guide their people for a new dynasty or something. So like that is a potential story arc. Like you can use the interesting abilities that the dragon horse has, as Dan has just described, and if you wanted to give it a little bit of like story, real world mythology has a little bit of that for you there. So they can be these foretellers of the coming of a great new ruler or of a new dynasty within whatever land that you have created, which I think would be really cool.
Actually, to expand on that, there's a bit here where it says, the dragon horse is much desired as a steed, but few succeed in using it as such, for the creature must be willingly companion and associate, and no dragon horse enjoys being land-bound for any period of time. A foal, raised lovingly and carefully and taken often into the vault of the sky, I don't know what the vault of the sky is, it just references it casually, but I love that shit, might become a trusted companion and steed, providing that no land-bound requirements were placed upon it. As the maturation process takes 20 years, such cases of foal raising are nearly unknown. The presence of evil makes these creatures desire to go elsewhere. So I'd like to expand on that idea, Tim, even more so than the idea that, like, you know, like mythologically, this creature is a forebear to great leaders. You could have a line of great leaders in your setting that all ride these dragon horses.
Oh, cool.
That they're literally like the mount and even perhaps the symbol on the flag of these creatures.
Oh, yeah.
Of this emperor.
That's part of their heraldry. That would be really cool.
So yeah, that's something you could sort of expand it into. And obviously the fact that it's a really fast, really strong, telepathic super horse that can breathe cones of cold means, like, even if this guy's only like a 5th level warrior, he's still going to be, they're still going to be very dangerous because the horse they're on is going to kick your ass.
Yeah, it's a pretty good horse.
Nice horse. Thanks.
Nice horse. Where'd you get it?
Astral dimension.
In the vault in the sky, was it? Or something like that.
Yeah, the vault of the sky.
Vault of the sky.
Yeah, don't know what that is, but I fucking...
Pink Floyd album.
Is it?
No.
That's a great name for one, though, yeah.
It does.
So, in a similar vein to that, I would... speaking of the heraldry, potentially, in the real world heraldry, there is an alternative kind of dragon that you can have in your heraldry called an amphiptere, which is basically a snake with wings. And I did a little bit of research, and there's not a huge amount of stuff as them being an actual, like, physical being, even in mythology. They're usually just used to represent... We're not even sure what they're used to represent. They're just heraldic devices.
Like a coatl?
Like a coatl, basically. But they were a more European style of it. Like it just looked like a snake with bat wings, and either they were fully feathered or they just had feathery wings. But the Coatl is definitely the cooler version, because the Quetzalcoatl was basically a god. Whereas I was thinking for these guys, because they don't have a very significant mythological history, maybe they could be used as like the little guys, the minions within the lair of a dragon that could potentially be just something that you fight while you're on your way to the dragon, or as part of maybe making a dragon's lair more interesting.
Tim.
Yes?
Tim, you're not allowed to say minions.
I'm not? Oh, it
makes me laugh.
I am so sorry. Banana.
Why? Because of the movies or because of the 4th edition?
No, because I don't movies.
A lot of
I don't know why.
A lot of them are yellow, so but Amphiptyr is a cool little name, and it's an interesting design as well. It's like the dragons in D&D are all very much based on a single archetype, as I mentioned before we started recording. They are the arms, the legs, and the wings, whereas there are so many cool variations of what dragons look like that you can incorporate into your settings.
Actually, while we're on that topic, do you guys want to go through just at least names of just other kinds of dragons we can just throw in for people to add some inspiration? Stuff like, like we mentioned time dragons, I'm thinking like sea dragons, stuff like that.
I've actually got the 2nd edition Monstrous manual because we have to change things. With a mess of dragons that aren't in the 5th edition book that I'd be happy to read through if you'd like.
Cool. Well, what we got?
Okay, so we've got the Amethyst Dragon.
Okay.
So there's actually a set of 5 gem dragons. Amethyst dragons are wise and regal, with a detached air, ignoring what they consider to be petty squabbles between good and evil, law and chaos. When hatched, amethyst dragons have lavender skin with small scales of light translucent purple. As they grow older, the scales gradually darken. Adults are sparkling lavender in color.
Beautiful.
Then we have the Crystal Dragon. The Crystal Dragon looks sort of like... The Crystal Dragon is interesting. Crystal Dragon doesn't have wings, or the artist forgot to draw them.
Oh.
But
So it's like a drake?
it looks kind of like Lugia. No, it looks kind of like Suikine from Silver, from Silver and Gold. The dog, the water dog.
One of the...
Not the dragon,
Crystal
the
as well.
dog.
Not the dragon, the dog. Not the man, the horse.
Yeah.
Crystal Dragon. Crystal dragons are the friendliest of the gem dragons, always curious about the world. Though they seldom seek out company, they willingly converse with visitors who do not try to steal from them. That's fair. I'm kind of like that too.
That's me. That's me.
That's Mikey all over. That's absolute Mikey maneuver. Then we've got the Emerald Dragon. Emerald Dragon has got their wings. Luckily, they've remembered them.
Yep.
Emerald Dragons are very curious, particularly about local history and customs, but prefer only to observe. They are the most paranoid of the gem dragons and do not like people to get close to their treasure. Then we got the Sapphire Dragon. The Sapphire Dragon looks like a Dark Souls boss, kind of.
Ooh.
No, it looks like a Dark Souls mini-boss. Sort of like weird, and he's sticking his tongue out. It's kind of it's sort of like if Gene Simmons dressed up as if Gene Simmons was like a scaly and he dressed up as a dragon and kind of came at you. And it's not great. While not actively hostile, Sapphire Dragons are militantly territorial and initially distrustful of anyone who approaches. That's actually a pretty good point of view in 2020, to be honest.
Yeah, very relatable.
Yeah.
The Topaz Dragon. Topaz Dragons are unfriendly and selfish. Though not malevolent, they are seldom pleasant to deal with because of their erratic behavior. Topaz Dragons neither seek company nor welcome it.
Ooh.
After that, we got the Metallic Dragons, who we all know/love/ don't care about. And then we got kind of what are sort of like they're like not categorized. They're almost like lesser dragons. We got the Brown Dragon, which are also known as Great Desert Dragons, which I think is cool. They appear to not have wings, so they're like just kind of dinosaurs that live in the desert, but they're smart like dragons. There's the Cloud Dragon, who loves clouds and being in them.
Very good.
There's the Deep Dragon, who lives underground, and then there's the Mercury Dragon, who is just sort of wibbly.
Sort of wibbly.
Sort of wibbly.
That stuff's really bad for you. Don't touch it.
It's very. Don't touch him.
Yeah, don't touch that dragon. Here's what it says in the Monster Manual. Don't touch that dragon.
It says don't touch.
Let me just read off what it says in the 5th edition Monster Manual. Don't touch that dragon.
Don't touch that dragon.
Don't touch that dial.
Don't battle poison.
It's bad.
It's bad.
There's also like a bunch of like different ones. Like there's a Steel Dragon who kind of doesn't have a place amongst the Metallic Dragons, but obviously references a metal. Mm-hmm. And there's just a Yellow Dragon who who has the best starting lore in the whole book, which is,
Okay.
although the existence of yellow dragons has long been predicted by sages, brackets, based on theories of primary colors, the first specimen was spotted only 5 or so years ago. I just love the idea that they're like,
Somehow, yellow dragon has returned.
I just think there's something so funny about the idea, like, well, there's a blue and a red dragon, there's got to be a yellow dragon. Like, says what? Just,
Ancient
there is.
sages have once prophesied that there will be a yellow dragon. Yeah, I just want my colors, man.
It's so fucking, I just think it's funny. It's like, that's the kind of shit you wouldn't get away with nowadays. If you were like, there's a yellow dragon because there's a blue and red dragon, you wouldn't be a sage, you'd just be an arsehole.
Yeah.
Like.
What if there's a yellow dragon?
There is no end of kind of different colored dragons,
Yeah.
and I would recommend the second edition Monstrous Manual if people are looking for some references. The second edition book, in my opinion, is probably the best like reference document for dragons, because every dragon gets one page, just one page, unlike 5th edition where they get like 2 or 3 pages. Every dragon gets one page. On the page, there's everything that the dragon will ever do, a picture of the dragon, and stats for the dragon, including like a full age range of stats. The only other thing is that because it's from 2nd edition, it can be difficult to translate into 5th edition. But if you separate the idea of stats and just use it as a reference material to build a dragon on, like, say, the backs of the chromatic dragons from 5th edition, then, it's a great way to mix them up.
Now, Daniel,
Yes.
you sent us a picture.
I sent you a picture.
A very special picture that we will put up on the Twitter. So if you haven't followed us already on Twitter, at Creature Club Pod on Twitter.
Please do.
And this picture
These all go
is
down.
of some sort of depressed fish that's being beached. That's supposedly a dragon fish.
That's the dragonfish. Beware.
Is that what it says on the monster manual for him?
That's all it says. There's only one word.
Beware.
No, the dragonfish is just basically like it's a bottom feeder. It's a scavenge.
Yeah, okay.
Which is why it looks kind of
Wow.
silly, because it's supposed to be swimming on the bottom of the water. But and it credits the artist. It actually looks like a fish that would swim on the bottom of the ocean. But
Yeah.
It just sort of like it's not that the art is a bad, like, it doesn't do a bad job. It's very clear what this creature is. It's just that the creature's silly looking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it
it is.
is basically in no way an actual dragon. It looks like an armored,
Yeah, it has nothing to do with
armored fish. It just got like a bunch of spikes.
And they make fun of the white dragon, like it's, and this guy is
Yeah.
about. But that being said, I do like the idea of a sea dragon, just like a master of the sea,
Yeah.
like powerful dragon that can swim. There's a lot of dragons that can swim, but just one that's like based in the sea and rules the seas,
There's another one that's a bit better known and it has a bit more love than the dragon horse. Tragically, I went looking for the dragon horse, and I always like to get multiple sources just to get an idea. I could not find the dragon horse in 2nd edition, even though I'm almost positive it gets a 2nd edition write-up, because 2nd edition has so many monster manuals. And I went looking for it, and normally the Forgotten Realms wiki is a good source for here's some books that have had this creature in it. But Forgotten Realms wiki doesn't have a page for the dragon horse, and I thought, this is injustice.
Do you want to write to them?
Dragon horse isn't getting. I think I will. I think I'll send a letter.
Yeah.
On their front page, they're like, we're celebrating over 33,000 pages. I'm
Where's the dragon horse?
33,000 pages and no dragon horse. You've written up all the villages from one adventure, but you haven't written up the dragon horse.
I wonder is it just because they actually called it the Key Rin now? Because I went to the Key Rin page and they go all the way back to 1st edition.
I think the Keyrin might also be in 1st edition, though, because the dragon horse specifically says the Skydivine dragon horse is a relative of the Keyrin. So I assume they wrote this thing up and they had both of them. But actually, in a different book, but also in 1st edition and through to 3rd edition, is the Dragon, which is not just me saying dragon with an accent, it's dragon with an N-E at the end. And the Dragon, I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it.
Do you know what that reminds me of? Like of Luke Skywalker and Luke Skywalker,
Oh,
there's
Luke Skywalker,
the clone
Pat
of
Skywalker.
Luke, and then also Luke Skywalker with 3 U's that exists in the Star Wars extended universe.
Oh God, good times. So the dragons are really kind of unique beast. It's basically a mixture of a lion and a brass dragon.
Okay.
So it looks kind of like a cat, but its mane is made of scales. Like it looks like a lion, but it's mainly made of scales and it has wings. I just thought I'd mention these because they're cool. In my Pathfinder game, there was a great moment where I was playing a hunter and I took a feat that let me take a better animal companion, and I got a dragon called Caliban. Just because I found one basically in a pit.
Sweet.
And I was like, I'll buy this dragon off you, and the guy was like, fine. And so I left.
$20.
$7 dues. I can't afford that. And so I had that. I had this dragon with me for the rest of the adventure. And the only reason I want to mention this is because there was a great moment where it's like a large creature, like it's the size of a horse, so you can ride it and use it as a mount. But there was a great moment where Rob gave me a magic item that let me expand the size of either myself or my mount if I was on it. And in one of the last fights of the campaign, I used it to make my dragon huge. And Rob had made a special pog of me standing on top of the dragon, but because the magic item that I used to grow like myself or the creature big was based on the drill from Gurren Lagann, it was me standing on top of the dragon as if I was Kamina from Gurren Lagann.
Yeah.
Like the whole pog was hand drawn. It was so cool. And I just want to mention that because Rob's a great DM who puts lots of work into his game, and it's just
He does. He's a great
DM. It's just great. It's really cool. I just remember it was just really cool. I was like, that's great. This is really good.
That's awesome.
Cool.
That's very cool.
I've never had Rob as a DM. Maybe someday.
He's a very good DM.
Gotta come back here first.
Oh, dang it.
He is.
Get back to the mainland.
Get back to the
Yeah.
city.
Get back to the battlefield, pilot.
Get back to you can't leave the area, pilot. All right. So the next one, Mr. Otter says, we talk about what a dragon is or what a dragon does, but never how a dragon is doing.
Oh,
So guys, how's the dragon doing?
how is the dragon? I feel like like most people would kind of assume that in the real world that dragons are just generally just chilling, you know? Like they're either expecting the party because you've set up that they are expecting the party, or they're not, and you give them a surprise and you don't get much opportunity to ask.
Dragons sleep a lot.
They do.
So they're probably
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
And they seem very angry and like they want to burn stuff down and burn down villages and take money and take stuff to their hordes. They seem like they're just mad at something. I don't, like they should just
Society,
chill out,
man.
grab a beanbag and just like, just talk it out and just be lads,
Yeah. Grab a beanbag, a red wine, and just vibe it out.
Grab a beanbag and red wine,
Bit of vino,
the fucking Creature Club way of doing it.
Don't spill that red wine on the beanbag.
It'll never come out.
You've stained my beans.
You stained my beans.
I feel like kind of the only way that you could ask a question like that is if you have a dragon that's sticking around for longer than like whatever specific encounter you have created around a specific dragon. Like you can only ask.
So like, how's the dragon doing? Like he's not bloody, is that if that's what you're asking?
Yeah, basically.
And then you're about to tick off your feats that are supposed to activate if they're bloody, but you just put the pencil down because it's not happening yet. So
It's not happening.
yeah, all right.
Nothing's happening.
Yeah, it's never happening. Okay, cool. So, anyway, on to the next question, which is from Stephen Brady at Stare Chicken, friend of the podcast, but also enemy of the podcast as well.
But like enemy in the sense that like the Panto villain is the enemy.
Absolutely,
of the Panto.
yeah, absolutely. Like, and he is a very valued friend, and I love him. I love him so.
Indeed.
So, I shall read off his fantastic question, which is: could you talk about what you would do to chain dragons up for a more experienced party? I ran a dragon straight out of the book, and an experienced party just crushed it. And the best fights I fought against dragons usually switched it up somehow. Oxylus, for example. First of all, Dan, do you know who Oxylus is?
I do. Oxylus was a really cool Oxylus the Chained, I think was their name. That was a boss fight against a dragon run by Rob, who just got a call out there. It was very interesting. It was a dragon, big black dragon, covered in these like rusted chains that was sort of maybe intended to imprison it, but now they were being used as a weapon. And so it was a dragon, but it had a couple of unique moves because of the chains. But then after we defeated it, it died, and then Tiamat, the evil queen of dragons, basically used her foul powers to awaken its bones and force it to fight us again.
Right.
In the classic example of the boss has two stages, you idiots.
Yeah, you idiot.
Which is an absolute classic maneuver. And yeah, so it was just this. It was a very and then in its second form, it was kind of like it was almost sort of like it was the bones of the dragon still kind of chained up, and it was like constantly like leaking acid and like bleeding acid and vomiting acid because it was a black dragon.
Right.
But then its acid was like turning into like maggot pits as it sort of fell, because obviously Tiamat's kind of the queen of the maggot pit and all that stuff. And so there was kind of like a deliberate sort of necromantic, otherworldly element to the second stage of the fight, when the first stage of the fight was kind of a fairly traditional dragon encounter.
Right. That's very cool.
It is. It was.
Stephen is asking things to change up completely from just the regular dragon stat block that we have been talking about quite a lot over this series. Something that experienced party could, like, you know, they could throw experienced party off guard, you know? Yeah. So what you said there, Dan, is actually, it's a great example, because you're kind of it's a second stage of a fight. There seems to be like in like other kind of hazards happening as well. It sounds like a fun encounter that I would love to do myself.
I think I think that one of the things that we mentioned again for the Silver Dragon, I'm pretty sure, was that one of the cool things that we could have them do is give them the ability to walk through the ice walls of their cavern. Like, I think we were slightly confused about exactly what one of their abilities meant.
Oh yeah, that was the White Dragon, I think.
Oh, the White Dragon is also the ice guy, so yeah, we could probably do that as well for them. But like, I think that something like that, which can extend the fight, but also let the dragon escape and plan again. So potentially calling in more allies, or like, for me, I think that one of the most evocative things for dragons in the world is like having them be a source of magic, basically. So giving the silver and the white dragon, the cold boys, the ability to walk through ice walls is a pretty natural fit for that. Like, they are of elemental ice. They are this magical power that can control ice, or I can't remember if I mentioned it in an episode, or that like they establish where the polar areas in your map are. So it's not necessarily just like the North Pole and the South Pole of like a terrestrial, like Earth-like planet. It's like wherever the ancient white dragon sat down for an extended period of time became the polar region, which might be beside like a, I don't know, like a giant swamp area.
Desert?
Or a desert. Yeah. For like the brass dragon? Was a brass dragon or was it bronze? Is the desert boy?
Bronze were coastal regions, but they were coastal deserts, I think.
Okay, yeah.
Although I can't quite recall.
Yeah, but stuff like that, I feel like makes the dragons a bit more interesting than just their stat blocks. Like, taking a look at their abilities first, and then kind of drawing from that. Like, the red dragon is a fire boy. Put him in a volcano.
Yeah, well,
Get in.
Yeah, that's very cool. Like, making like a kind of a volcano with like kind of some environmental hazards. I know actually in one of Steven's games we fought against a fiery like red dragon who had like a bunch of like, it was in kind of like a almost like a Zelda kind of encounter where it was like platforms of fire, and there was lava underneath that if you fell in you would get hit by the lava. My character almost died in lava, which you know,
you did,
and that happened. But the arena was something to fight in there, so that's always, I think, with any monster, having a fun arena for you to fight in, like boss room, is always a great way to make any encounter fun. So I think, yeah, as you said there, Tim, kind of going with like their shtick and their thing, and kind of making some sort of fun like environment out of it, you know.
And if they're at like a high enough level, you can basically, in my mind, the dragon is in control of everything that's going on with the volcano.
Do you feel in control?
So they can like make the lava jump out, because like, if you're at a high level, you're very, very, very hard to kill, and you have so many things that can mitigate so much damage, and you'll have like prepared spells, and you'll have like your armor will protect you from all fire damage at a certain point. So like having the magma like
my
jump
armor is
out,
actually just bees.
yeah.
So if you hit me, the bees get mad and sting you.
It's all bees.
Idiot.
Yeah.
Rookie mistake.
He's not a man anymore. He's bees all the way down.
Just bees, you fool.
The bees have taken over. But like having,
you thought you were fighting barbarian, but you were just fighting bees.
You fool.
You idiot. I'm actually bees the entire time.
Look here on my character sheet, it actually says.
It actually says, and then the DM like winks at you, and like I knew as well.
You were in on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in a volcano, you could have like spouts of lava, like cut off areas, or like stick people to things and like harden very quickly. And gosh, what else could you do with lava? You could have poison gas. You could have, I mean, the heat thing is always going to be fun to play with. You can have people run Constitution saving throws every once in a while against the potential heat, and maybe even give them exhaustion if they like you tell them that they're running out of water. Or I mean, that's more resource management, which starts getting kind of awkward. But if you wanted to like really challenge people,
Your water is low.
your water is
Fill
low.
it up in the nearest well.
That's kind of on my mind, because the last time I did a full 12-hour day of work, I almost got heat stroke because I drank too much water, or too little water, even though I was drinking water basically the entire day. So that's close to my heart. They get the old heat stroke, and then they're exhausted.
So you want to do that to your players or your player characters?
What's happening? I'll just turn off the AC until my actual players are exhausted.
Can I like get some air? No,
No.
absolutely
Oh,
not.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Here's a crazy idea. How about hybrid dragons? You know, where I'm thinking about breath weapons, but kind of maybe giving just pretty much to make the stat block a bit tougher and a bit different. Just giving them 2 different breath weapons, you know, and like maybe just like a fire and ice kind of like a choice of that, or like going with what you have with the metallic dragons. They have like a status effect as well. Like add one of those on there too. You know, just kind of add different kinds of breath weapons and different like give them different tools they can use for the fight, which is a fun idea.
A cool one for that might be if you wanted to send them up against a blue dragon. Electricity has a lot of other crazy effects on human bodies. Like you can be stunned in place. Like maybe the lightning breath does its damage, and it can be a more stunning thing, like it freezes your muscles, that kind of thing. Or gosh, what else could you do? You could do like a lightning cage, which I guess would also be very similar to a stun, but less direct.
What's a lightning cage?
Like
Lightning cage, you fool.
Maybe like in the area of the ancient blue dragon's lair, there are like lightning rods stuck in the ground, and it can choose to have lightning flow consistently between those things, and your characters can't pass through these walls or cages of lightning unless they can fly, I guess, which is not unlikely at a high level.
I just remembered as well, we mentioned on one episode of possibly giving a dragon a weapon, just a big weapon.
Yeah, like my
maybe
t-shirt.
a big weapon, or just a big, either a big weapon or just a big magical item of some sort that they can use, like as like a big sword that has magical properties. Just kind of giving the dragon that to work with, and it's like it makes the fight kind of just like look cooler in the theater of the mind, but also like just might add a bit of difficulty to the encounter. There's another one.
In the 5th edition book, there is the optional rule that you can have your dragons act as spellcasters, with the unfortunate caveat that is all it says. It does not tell you what spells to take. It gives you a number of spells the dragon knows.
Do the work yourself.
Which isn't really good, but it kind of reminds me of when we were reading the templates and it just said, the DM can make their own lair actions, which is the same as not writing any text in your book and just giving them a page that says thanks for all the money, idiot.
I'm not going to do that.
Have your own fun. Have fun by yourself.
Yeah, I did pay for that book with my own money,
I did actually
guys.
pay for this book, so if you could put some rules in it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So yeah, I'll just read that off here. I don't think we've actually read it yet. Variant dragons as innate spellcasters. Dragons are innately magical creatures that can master a few spells as they age using this variant. Blah, blah. A young or older dragon can innately cast a number of spells equal to its charisma modifier. Each spell can be cast once per day, requiring no material components, and the spell's level can be no higher than 1/3 the dragon's challenge rating, brackets rounded down. The dragon's bonus to hit with spell attacks is equal to its proficiency bonus plus its charisma bonus. Its spell modifier is 8 plus its proficiency plus because it's cat mod. So basically, it's a caster, like a sorcerer. It's a sorcerer.
Sorcerer, yeah.
Which makes sense because it's supposed to be innately magical, and so are sorcerers. So this is fine, except for the fact that it doesn't like give you a spell list, which seems like a really obvious thing that it should do. So what I would say as a very straightforward amendment to any dragon would be to take this variant, make them a spellcaster, and then just take the from the player's handbook, in the Druid, there is the Circle of the Land subclass. And then there are different sort of land types like Arctic, Underground, Swamp, Forest. And each of those has like spells associated with it. So I would say, just say that the dragon knows those spells, because those are sort of deliberately associated with nature and they are part of Druid's abilities. So that might be a good start. But again, I'm not super keen on the fact that it just doesn't tell you what to do. One thing I will point out, because I think it's great, is there's a couple of extra attacks that the dragon has access to from 3rd edition in the 3.5 monster manual. There's a section on dragons. It says dragon combat. And then it lists the sort of generic attacks that every dragon, regardless of whether they're metallic or chromatic, has access to. And we've got a couple of the classics here. We've got the bite, the claw, the wings, the tail slap. But then we've got some interesting ones. We've got crush, which is where the dragon just lands on people. So crushing is fairly straightforward. It basically just says for a dragon to crush someone, it needs to be at least 3 or more size categories bigger than them. Mm-hmm. So if it's large, they have to be small. Otherwise, it has to be huge or gargantuan. So your adult and ancient dragons can benefit from this. This is great. A crush attack affects as many creatures as fit completely under the dragon's body. I love that rules text. There's something about that just feels really funny.
But how many?
How many is it? All of them. Everybody gets in. So if you were running this with a battle map, which a lot of people run, you can literally just put the dragon's pog over the characters, and everyone who gets covered takes damage. And it's very straightforward. It just says the DC for this, it's a reflex save, which in the parlance of 5th edition would be a dexterity saving throw. The DC is equal to the dragon's breath weapon, so hey, look, we don't even have to do any math. And if they fail, they're pinned, and they take damage equal to the dragon's, I think, tail attack or something like that. Tail it, basically, because it's just a big crushing blow. So that's immediately something that gives the dragon a way to control the battlefield and use its bulk against the party, which I like. And then there's another cool one here, which I like, which is a tail sweep, which is different from a tail slap. Unfortunately, the names aren't great, but the actual idea behind it is really cool. So obviously the tail hit, or whatever we want to call it in 5th edition, is just the dragon uses its tail on someone, they take some damage, blah, blah, blah. But this is different. This is the tail sweep, and this is an ability that only really big dragons, huge or larger, have access to. And what they do is, it's gargantuan or colossal, but we don't have colossal here, so it would be huge or gargantuan in the language of 5th edition. And basically it's a cone, or it's not even a cone, it's a semicircle, and that's the sweep of its tail, and everyone in that semicircle has to make a save against the dragon's tail. They get batted aside and take damage. And I really like, again, the idea of the dragon isn't just standing there and hitting things and you lose health. Now it's creating these shapes, right? Like it can fly over you and fall on you, and so you have to be aware of the size of the dragon, and you have to space yourself, and it can create this half circle of damage and control. And so you have to be aware of your positioning in relation to okay, how much can it move, and what if it tail sweeps us? So I would say that abilities like this that don't change, everything about the dragon, but actually just say, well, it's a big fucking lizard, it's just going to sit on you. Well,
yeah, incredible.
Why wouldn't it sit on you? It's bigger than you. It's going to sit on you and you're going to die. That sort of thing. I think rules like that just say, it sits on you, or it hits you with its tail and you fly across the room. You are literally the size of a fly to this thing. It's just going to batter you around the place. It doesn't give a shit about you.
Yeah.
I think the idea of rules that really reinforce the idea of this dragon is huge. It's so big. It's so much stronger than you. What are you doing here?
Or just picks you up and eats you.
I actually think, in fairness, some kind of ability to just eat you would be smashing, but the swallow whole rules in 5th edition are kind of a nightmare. So but yeah, those are some two relatively straightforward abilities. The crush ability, which is just the dragon falls on people, and if they fail to save, they take damage, and they are basically pinned or grappled by the dragon because it's sitting on them.
Yeah.
And the tail sweep, which is just a big semicircle of tail that you have to get out of the way of. I think both of those are really cool, straightforward ways to make the dragon's size more relevant, especially as you get to higher levels, without kind of complicating it too much.
Here's an idea how to make your games a bit tougher, but it won't change up anything. Just have a dragon fight, and then just make your players play a separate game of Buckaroo on the side while they're fighting the dragon. Because Buckaroo is stressful as it is. So
have them, whenever they want to take an action, they have to take a piece out of the Jenga tower.
Yeah. Have them take a particularly tough operation piece,
Oh yeah. And if they ever fail the Jenga, they get disintegrate cast on them.
Yeah.
Womp womp.
I think, sorry, just to go back to what you said about weapons, I was actually thinking about that. I don't know if you guys remember when we were talking about silver dragons and how in 4th edition it talked about how like silver dragons are like deliberately martial, and even though they are dragons, they want to get in there and like fight with their claws and their tail. Like they enjoy the sort of, the practice of battle in a way that other dragons maybe don't. And I think actually reinforcing that idea with fighting styles, like coming up with basically like some kind of rule that rewards the dragon for doing something.
Yeah, like dragon fighting styles.
Almost, yeah. And like, I mean, in 3.5 Dragonomicon, there are literally like dragon classes. Like a dragon can start leveling into a class.
Right.
And become like a dragon who is also like a paladin of Bahamut, which is like absolutely wild. But the idea of just like, in the same way that, the players are a human or a dwarf or an elf or a half-orc or whatever, and they draw their power from this class they take levels in. I think the idea that like a dragon could also do the same thing. A dragon could also become powerful because they are tapping into this like set of practices, because all it really is just like you start practicing something, you get really good at it, and now you're able to, kill more people. And like that's all dragons do. So like if a dragon's like, I'm not just a murderer, I'm not just someone who eats people, like I'm a sort of, I don't know, like I'm a Drake Knight or whatever, and like I've actually got proficiency in armor, and I can wear these cool like big metal attachments to my claws that let me do more damage, or let me ignore like magic armor or something like that.
That's very cool. Yeah.
I would absolutely go for that. And it kind of tracks with like, I mean, if you have people in the world that have the ability to attain this great power through being a follower of any particular god, then, and Bahamut is one of them, then it absolutely makes sense that an intelligent dragon could learn those abilities and become just as strong. It wouldn't necessarily, although what we were talking about, we could give them swords and armor and stuff, and they could gain proficiencies in those and raise their ACs beyond the towering like 20s usually for the like higher level dragon boys. Yeah. Brass dragon is already armor class 20, natural armor.
All natural, baby. This is quite a complicated answer in terms of just tracking rules, but it is an interesting way to mix up fights, which is to give your dragons magic items from the Dungeon Master's Guide. And that obviously pulls double duty, because it's both a cool way to make the fight harder, and then after that it's a cool way to get treasure. In particular, because we've already mentioned arms and armor, I think the idea that the dragon might have a rod or a wand that it's able to use, because those often have a lot of unique powers that are kind of unexpected, like the Rod of Power. Oh, it's the Rod of Power. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember anything except dragon rules. But the idea of like, having access to maybe this collection of spells as a result of this magic item that then the party can acquire for themselves, but also make the fight more difficult. And then I think the other thing is just the numbers game of something I was thinking of while we were talking was like, it's like, how do you make a fight more challenging? And I was like, well, what do dragons do? It's like, well, they can swim and they can walk, but they can often fly faster than anything else.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, so they want to be up. And I was like, well, a really natural ally would be like something that doesn't want to go up, that wants to go down, like sort of a you go high, I go low.
I'll get to Scotland before you.
It's a long way back to Manchester. But like, yeah, so the idea of the dragon either using like subterranean creatures, and there's like creatures with burrow speeds for like every ecology, like ankags or remorazes, or I mean, if you're in the water, just use sharks or whatever, that'd be badass.
Sharks can burrow?
Land sharks.
Boulets.
Oh yeah, the bullets. Yeah,
the boulet. But there's like a lot of creatures that can sort of dig underground, and the idea that a dragon maybe nests above these things, and so as the party fight the dragon, they have this kind of secondary threat to deal with, and especially the idea of using those things not necessarily just as like, not necessarily do something simple as like more monsters, more enemies, but just kind of apply pressure. Like the idea like, okay, you're being attacked by a dragon and there's a land shark digging away at you, but like the land shark isn't just attacking you, it's actually creating a pit, and you're going to get stuck if you don't do something about it, like either get out of the pit or get rid of the land shark. And so now you're kind of dealing with these different, like you have to weigh these balances and figure out like how you're going to survive this.
Yeah.
That's something that I think would be cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm getting a bit tired. So, and I'm not really saying a whole lot because I'm kind of half asleep recording this podcast.
Okay.
So I'm going to
Sleepy boy.
Yeah, I'm a sleepy boy. So I'm just going to maybe just say final thoughts on dragons, like for good.
We're never talking about dragons ever again.
Ever again, even though next week Dragon Turtles, but like let's forget
We're
about
saying
that.
goodbye for, I think, yeah, like jokes aside, we are saying goodbye to these creatures who are some of the most iconic creatures in the game for a significant period of time. So I think you're right, Mikey. Like, what do we have to say about these?
Yeah.
It's not goodbye, it's just see you later for a while.
That's a nice, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What do we got to say about dragons? Well, they are... I think I've mentioned this in a few episodes already, but I'm just going to reiterate now. But dragons, like, I feel like if you have players who haven't fought a dragon yet, give it a go. You know, if they're the right level, I'd say throw a dragon at them, and because I feel like every player should at least fight at least one. You know, every D&D player should do that. Should have the experience of fighting a dragon. It's just by you guys, you know, you DMs at home trying to figure out which one you like the most and which one you want to do by listening to our Creature Club Dragon series. Just figure out which one you like. But honestly, they're all cool, but they're all kind of similar as well, as we've mentioned quite a lot on this thing. So you will be fine whichever one you pick, you know. But I think that, you know, dragons are kind of some of the ultimate boss monsters, and I don't think you can go wrong with using them. There is more interesting encounters you can do in the game and even in this book, but there's, you know, they're great for a reason though. Dragons, you know, they're dragons. That's really it. So use a dragon today. That's I will just say that.
Adopt a dragon today. Donate $2 to Creature Club.
We made
Podcast.
that joke already. We've made that joke already.
Yes,
Tim.
we have. Oh no, I'm not fired again, am I?
It has been 9 months. So
That's true, yeah.
we've probably made every joke.
That's fine. Yeah.
Every joke ever. Yeah, my kind of final thoughts on dragons is that, like, as Mikey said, they're iconic, but their individuality definitely comes from however you can basically make that happen. Like, the stat blocks and the description of their layer actions and regional effects is all well and good, but you as kind of the DM can use your imagination here. Like, we've given a bunch of examples of how to make these things really, really cool, but the monster manual is basically a tool in your belt. Like, we've used real world mythology to help us come up with some cool ideas, and we've used our own creativity. So this is an opportunity for you to do that, and the dragons are a very powerful way to, like, flex a certain amount of creativity that maybe you wouldn't usually do. An example that I was kind of thinking of there, the black dragon. This is one that I just made up while Dan was talking there. It has an acid breath. So acids typically react very heavily with other things, but for the dragon's body to be in balance, maybe in my head, maybe they have like a very strong base element in them as well. And base things have very different reactions with various materials. So if you have,
I'm all about that base.
all about that base. If the dragon like hawks up a loogie of lye or like of ammonia, and it reacts with some of the metals that the party are wearing or that are just lying around, sometimes that produces a flammable gas or a noxious gas, or even it can, like, I looked into it, and the like bases and stuff can cause like your muscles to cramp up, or it can discolor them, and that can be something that can leave like a mark on your party. So you want to leave an impression, like, mentally, that these people will remember this fight and make it interesting, but you can also remind them by giving them like an actual marking, which would be kind of fun. And so it definitely comes to, I mean, the onus is almost always on the DM to come up with cool stuff for their parties, but I feel like dragons are a very cool way to, as I said, flex your creativity and come up with some interesting left field kind of things that you can do. and I will very much definitely be doing that in any future games that I come up with. As I said a couple times, my current setting doesn't have very many dragons in it, but my next setting definitely will.
So in terms of final thoughts, we've talked a lot about dragons I think just to return to the idea of like running dragons for an experienced party, I would say, to keep it as short as possible, I would say give them spell casting, let them spell cast with a legendary action. I would say give them minions, especially if they're higher level. Kobolds are like 0.5 or like even less maybe. But a lot of them can just bother the hell out of the party. And it's part of the lore of the game normally that like these creatures just like kobolds just surround dragons and just live all over them, live there all the time. So do that. Just have them be everywhere and like constantly getting in the way of like arrow shots and stuff like that. In terms of dragons in the context of a setting, there's one other thing I just thought I'd briefly mention was that back before there was a monster manual, I can't even remember the name of the book now. I might be able to find it, but probably not. But back when D&D was in its most basic set, there weren't 10 dragons, there was only 6. And those 6 were the 5 chromatic dragons and gold dragons. And so if you are the kind of person for whom the idea of the more politically inclined, more benevolent or like less sort of monstrous dragons, if that doesn't really appeal to you, you could actually return to this older vision of D&D where there are 5 kinds of evil dragons. There's no end to evil dragons, but there's only one kind of good dragon, and that one kind is extraordinarily rare, even though it is the most powerful of all the dragons. And so that tells you a different kind of story about the world, rather than the world having this kind of balance of powers between, you know, these 5 good types of dragons and these 5 bad types of dragons. Instead, it's a world with sort of 5 evil kinds of dragons and 1 good kind of dragon who, like, obviously is so outnumbered that they could never stop the evil dragons, but they could maybe mitigate their advances and, you know, act against them in ways. But that's just something to consider if you find that, you know, for whatever reason, you're like, I don't want to run all these different kinds of dragons. One final point actually is something we've said a lot is like, you know, you might not fight metallic dragons because they're supposed to be good, which has really kind of made me realize that like one of the funny things about D&D is that like everyone fights to the death, you know, like no one's just like you don't just fight someone and then go, all right, you win. I give up.
In my games, it's very much possible to punch the evil out of people, you know? Like, it's
like everyone goes between like standing around talking and deciding and like acting like acting like they have really like limited object permanency, like just doing things and then being like, wait, is he still in the room? Like, you know, like completely incompetent, and then kind of entering some sort of battle trance and butchering everyone in sight. And like, you know, what I would say is like there is a middle path where the party could very deliberately, as part of some kind of rite or ritual, go around challenging a bunch of metallic dragons to a fight, just not to the death.
Yeah. You don't need to fight. Yeah, DMs, they don't need to fight to the death. They don't need to. You don't have to do that.
And like, you know, you can make that part of the setting. You can make that something that comes up implicitly over time. But yeah, it was just something I was thinking about as we were getting ready for today, because I was thinking about how like we kept reinforcing that thing of like, oh, you don't really fight good dragons, but it's like, you know, there's like the rules for not killing someone, especially in 5th edition, are extraordinarily generous.
Yeah.
All you do is just say, you know, when you would deal the lethal blow, that you just turn your blade and they're just knocked out, and you don't need to do anything else. There's no non-lethal damage track. There's nothing like that. There's nothing that complicated. Yeah. It's just that you just say, I don't kill them. I just elect to
I
knock
kill
them
him
out.
with non-lethal damage.
Which, yeah, in Pathfinder you could do. You just, if you dealt enough non-lethal damage, it became lethal.
Yeah.
Which is like such a weird concept. But anyway, so yeah, just like, yeah, and like even, I mean, geez, like take that concept and translate it even further. Don't let your bad dragons kill the party evil either, because bad dragons love to rub it in and use people. Yeah. Have them like knock the party out and then tie them up and chain them and then parade them around as a symbol of how powerful they are, and then they escape, or, you know.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That could be used for most campaigns, or not even just dragons. Like that's pretty good D&D advice.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Right, cool. Well, that's dragons, guys. That's dragons for the moment, for like a long time anyway. Yeah, we can finally take off those shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Go now and rest.
You've earned it.
Earned it.
Just grab yourself a beer from the fridge. Dragons is finally over.
I might actually.
You know? Do that, Tim.
I've already finished my glass of wine. I don't think I'm going to have a beer. I think I'm just going to go to bed.
Just go to bed.
Fair.
I'm just going to bed.
It's late at night for you guys.
Well, it's 11.
Middle of the day.
It's 11. Not the middle of the day. It's 11 at night. But anyway, yeah, that's dragons. That's we're done finally, and we can go back to doing classic Creature Club episodes. Next one's Dragon Turtle, but I think the only thing similar about it is the name. There's a lot of different stuff with that creature. Whenever I looked at it, there's a few dragony bits, but it's its own thing. So I know it's funny that like we're done dragons, and then next episode Dragon Turtle. You know, it's something. But yeah, cool. Yeah, I don't know what to say really. I think we're just done. So I think I might just wrap it up.
Yeah.
I probably, I think I won't go into too much of a spiel of all the stuff that we normally do. I'm just gonna say, guys, stay safe out there. And just right now, times are kind of tough, and people are kind of lonely and alone. And just make sure everyone's feeling all right. Make sure the people around you are feeling good. And check up on your friends, check up on your family, check up on your loved ones. Just, stick together and, stay cool with each other. Be excellent to each other.
Lovely. That was great, Mikey. Thank you.
No problem, man.
Pleasant indeed.
I'm happy to do that.
Episode
and when you're
69.
done, and when you're done, subscribe to us on wherever you find the podcast. So, now
reach out to your friends. Ask how they are. Tell them to subscribe to Creature
Reach
Club.
out to your friends. Oh, that's the worst. That is the worst.
Oh shit.
Check up on them, see if they're doing okay, and then just give them a CD of Creature Club podcast because we sell more CDs now.
A single episode.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to episode 69, guys. It is,
nice.
Nice. It's. I wish we had something funnier to do with this one, but that's.
I think it's appropriate.
That's all we can do, really. See you in episode 420.
Oh yeah.
I've been Mikey.
I've been Tim. And Dan's mic cut out.
Stay.
We've done it. Yeah, well, in our user or in our listener submitted episodes, we did have the Angler Dragon, which was a really, really cool dragon that we were very enthusiastic about. Just how phenomenally thought out it was. Like the Angler Dragon was, it's a deep sea dragon, but I feel like it's in
the Underdark. It's not a deep sea one. It's from the Underdark.
What?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Oh no!
It wasn't a deep sea one. It was from the Underdark.
Oh no!
I remember.
I failed.
Yeah, it was.
I failed you, Adam Buxton.
Well,
put him at the bottom of the sea.
Will I just mention one more Dragonoid before we wrap up this question and move on to the next one?
Yeah, go on.
And the best fights I fought against dragons usually switched up. Sorry. And the best fights I fought against dragons usually switched.